Hi, this is Cidney Swanson, author of the Ripple series and a personal friend of Bridget Lee, the owner of Las Abuelitas Bakery Cafe. And Bridget has taught me a thing or two about making pies like this one. And I'm going to demonstrate that making pie is really easy. It's as easy as pie. And we're going to put a pie together like this in 10 minutes. Okay, here we go. So the first thing you want to do when you get your pie going is you want to have your fruit already thawed. And you're going to put sugar, lots of sugar. That's the key to a good pie, is lots of sweetener. And you're going to put your sugar on there and then put some tapioca on so that it makes a nice, so that it comes together and gels really nicely for you. And you're going to want to stir that around a little bit so that the tapioca comes in contact with the liquid, and that is what makes the tapioca soften into nice little soft pieces of goo in your pie. Doesn't that sound good? Instead of making those like crunchy nuggets of tapioca that are really annoying. So we're going to let this sit here and soak during the rest of the time that we're making the outsides of the pie. The other thing that I have going ahead of time is I've got some crumble topping, and that's going to go on top so that I only have to make one pie crust. Because I figure if you're pie phobic, like most people in America are, then you probably don't want to have to go through any more work than you have to. So why not do just a bottom crust and then a crumble on top? Oh, I forgot something really important. Apron, because making pies is really messy, like that. So you want to grab an apron if you care about what you're wearing. And this is my favorite black t-shirt, so yeah, I don't want to get it messy. All right, so to make one bottom pie crust for a 10-inch pie plate, which is this big guy right here, we're going to put in 1 full cup of flour and another ½ cup of flour. That's 1/4 cup, ½ cup. Next thing we're going to add is some salt, and if you were measuring it, you would put in like a teaspoon. And I like to use Celtic sea salt. You can use, Morton salt, whatever. So a little bit over a teaspoon. And then you're going to take some kind of instrument, I like a whisk, that's going to mix everything together so that that salt is distributed nice and evenly so that you don't have like a uber salty bite. All right, and then the next thing to go in is shortening. And this is right around between 2/3 and 3/4 of a cup of shortening. I like to use this guy right here. I get such good results with this stuff. The other thing you can get really good results with is Crisco, but it's hydrogenated, so if you're trying to avoid that, then the Spectrum's a really good idea. Okay, so we've got this in here, and you might think you could stir it with this, but not so much. What you want to do is you want to use something like this guy, or you may have something that looks like this at your house. Either one will work. This one's a lot easier, so I'm going to use it because I like it to be easy as pie, not really hard to make pie. So I'm just smashing this around in here. And you can see I use like this narrow bowl that has like rounded sides, and that's because the sides of the bowl actually push back, and they do part of my work for me, so I don't have to work so hard making the pie. So we're going to end up with something that looks, can you bring the camera right on in here? Let's take a look at that. You can see this is what sometimes you'll see in cookbooks described as, get it to where there's nothing larger than the size of a small pea in there. So it's pretty mixed up. And at this point, I'm going to add ice water. Oh, and you want to get your ice cube and your ice water ready ahead of time. I just kind of drizzle it in on the side, like that. You'll use a different amount of ice water depending on how humid it is, how cold it is, how hot it is, and how wet of a crust you like to work with. Oh, and then get the biggest fork in your house, like this, for the next step. You want to use that fork to stir in that ice water. And then what you'll have when you're done is you're going to have this really sticky blob. And if you have a pastry cloth like from your grandma or something, those are awesome, and they're impossible to buy anymore. Maybe like at an antique store or something. But if your grandma has one, they're great, or something like this to roll your pie crust out on. As you can see, I'm putting down a ton of flour here. That's because I make my pie crusts really, really, really full of fat, basically. I'm using, that sounds great, doesn't it? I'm using a lot of shortening because that's going to give me a crust that's super flaky and just kind of melts in your mouth when you eat it. And yeah, a little tip from Bridget is don't skimp on the fat and don't skip on the sugar. All right, so now we're ready to roll our crust out. And this is the part that really throws a lot of people for a loop. So you can see I'm kind of rolling it around, treating it a little bit like Play-Doh, but maybe a little lighter touch. And now I'm going to make it into a disc and put that disc right here. And I got a rolling pin somewhere. Woo, somewhere. There it is. Thank you. Okay. I have great help. All right, so I'm going to take my rolling pin and I'm going to go once, twice that way, and then at exactly, what would that be, 90 degrees, once, twice that way. Then I'm going to pick the whole thing up, because at this point, this has absorbed most of the flour that's down there, and I want to make sure that I don't run out of flour, or else I'm going to have a real mess. All right, so then I put it back down. At this point, I'm also going to just put a little bit of flour on the rolling pin. Okay, so back and forth, kind of in, little X's, back and forth. And if you have a pastry mat that's got marks on it, awesome. If you don't, just keep practicing. You'll get used to how big you need to make it. And the great thing about making pie is it's so fun to eat. You have a little prize at the end. So it's kind of a task that's fun to practice. I've been making pie since I was 14. And I feel like, I learn a little something every year. Okay, this is almost as big as I need it. So again, I'm just kind of pushing out from the center at this point. And now we're going to flip it into the pie plate. Here's the technique I like to use. Your mileage may vary. I've seen people fold it in half and then fold it in quarters. I can't seem to get it back out without tearing it. So I just like to drape it over my arm and then gently lead it over to the pan. And sometimes it goes on nice and centered. Sometimes not so much. You can pull it a little bit and coax it a little bit if it gets off center, but not too much, because it's super tender, as you can see. So if you get a tear like that, you just smash it back together again. Okay, so now I'm going to take these edges, and if you want to come in close for this part, I'm going to take all these little edges and I'm just going to kind of like roll them under there, tuck them under there, like this. And this crust makes kind of like a barrier, like a dam, over which the berry stuff can't flow. So, it's pretty when you flute it, but it's also really purposeful because it's going to stop the juices from messing up my oven. All right, so, and as you can see, like some of it's really skinny and some of it's kind of lumpy. You know what? That's going to happen your first couple pies, or when you're trying to prove that it's possible to make pie in 10 minutes. This next step right here, you're going to have to get like your grandma or somebody to teach you. I don't know, how do I do it? I make like this little V thingy right there, and I smash my knuckle into it. That's the best. No, I don't. I don't make a V. I go like that. Truth in advertising. Okay. And I just work my way around. You could also use like the back of a fork and just, press it flat with the back of a fork. So there we go. By this point, my berries have been soaking that tapioca, not for the full 15 minutes like I told you, but that just means I don't put it in the oven right away. I'll give it another 10 minutes sitting here. So I'm dumping my berries in here. Guys, I'm fresh out of Scilla berries. So disappointing. But these are Oregon blueberries, and they'll do. All right, so there's my pie filling. Kind of mush it all around in there. And you can see the tapioca is like those little white crystal-y things, and they're going to soften up right now, and then when they bake in the oven, they won't be crunchy when they come out. And the last thing, and again, if you're just learning to make crust, how easy is this? You just put crumble topping on top. This is basically, it's like putting oatmeal cookie dough on top of your pie crust. So all this recipes, all the ingredients and stuff you can find on my website or in the Rippler cookbook coming out later this summer. But yeah, it's pretty much just like oatmeal cookie dough. Now I'll just fill in that little spot right there. And if you made too much, oh darn, find someone who likes to eat raw oatmeal cookie dough. Okay, there you go. Pie in 10 minutes. Have fun!